Walking alone, the streets are empty. The only thing I can see is my own silhouette. I'm getting.
And when I look at
I'm walking alone, the streets are empty. The only thing I can see is my own silhouette. I'm getting stronger, step by step. The clock is ticking, but there's no time for me. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe, trying to protect your soul. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Feel like a dynamite, ready to explode right up in the sky. I need you to listen, I need you to hear, and don't show any fear. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe, trying to protect your soul. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe, trying to protect your soul.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the World of Football podcast. Before we get on to the football matters, it was only right for me and George, along with everyone else in the chat, to start with tributes to Queen Elizabeth II, who unfortunately passed away on Thursday at Balmoral Castle in Scotland, her summer home. Well, first of all, I just want to make sure, please, everyone be respectful and kind in the comments, regardless of your views. If you do not wish to watch this part of the show, I understand, but everyone, please do be respectful. Any comments that are disrespectful, nasty, or anything in that sense will be an instant ban from myself or any of the mods in the chat. And that will be the case for the remainder of the show. I'm going to try and keep this short and sweet for that particular reason, as this show is a football show. But it was only right to start with a tribute to who was the UK's longest reigning monarch of 70 years. Never once will we probably ever see someone reign as a king or queen in our lifetimes, or maybe again in history. Queen Elizabeth was an incredible person who was not only well respected and a role model to everybody in the United Kingdom, but well respected and a role model from people around the world. Her personality, her graciousness, her kindness, and her amazing humor was shown around the world. And not only was she, looked up to, she was looked up to by the Commonwealth, by other countries that she rules over, and that they declare as queen. And she was clearly a well respected and loved, lady. And never, not once will we see someone like her. Not once will we ever see someone like her again. She was just an incredible person who overseen the Second World War, COVID-19, the Cold War. She even visited Northern Ireland during the Troubles, which was a very difficult time when Northern Ireland was fighting with each other and where a lot of people lost innocent lives. And Queen Elizabeth always came, and even to the other side, to the Republican side, even bowed her heads and paid her respects, which no one else, probably would have done. She will be incredibly missed, and Lisa was glad to hear that she passed away peacefully with her family around her in her summer home, where she spent every single summer and where she truly loved. And as she makes her final journey through the United Kingdom, as her funeral will take place on Monday, the 19th of September, where she'll be laid beside her husband, where she led by example during COVID-19 restrictions. She didn't, break any restrictions. Even when she lost her long-term husband, she still set an example by grieving in peace during her husband's funeral, which was all sad images for us to see. And the Queen will be greatly missed, and we'll all obviously pay our respects to her during the period of mourning, which will end next Tuesday after her funeral. So rest in peace, Your Majesty, and thank you for your fantastic service over the last 70 plus years that you were part of the royal family, but also our Queen. And you carried out your duties all the way to the very end when you greeted your last Prime Minister, Liz Truss, and that was just summed up who you are. You never stopped, no matter how ill you are or how old you were, you kept going, and not very many people can do that. George?
Yeah, obviously the Queen has been a constant presence in the life of so many people, as you sort of spoke about before, Josh. She was a symbol for Britain and the Commonwealth for so many years, and it's understandable that so many are feeling shocked and saddened at losing such a well-respected and beloved figurehead. She leaves behind a world which she has left an enduring legacy upon, and she always remains strong despite her advancing years in the face of adversity, which again Josh has sort of touched on at various points. She was a beacon of hope to so many. Our thoughts are with her family, particularly at this difficult time. May she have a thoroughly deserved rest in peace, and we wish King Charles III peace and prosperity moving forward.
Very well said. We will pay a small little tribute to Queen Elizabeth, followed by a minute's silence, and then we will move on with the show.
And when I look at our country today and see what we are willing to do to protect and support one another, I say with pride that we are still a nation those brave soldiers, sailors and airmen would recognize and admire. I send my warmest good wishes to you all. We should take comfort that while we may have more still to endure, better days will return. We will be with our friends again. We will be with our families again. We will meet again. But for now, I send my thanks and warmest good wishes to you all.
Right, everyone, thank you very much, and thank you for that. So, everyone, thank you for tuning to the Roll of Football podcast. Hope you're all hope you've all had a fantastic week, and we're back to talk about football. Obviously, no Premier League action did take place there at the weekend, but there is Premier League action. Those 3 games have been postponed to come this weekend. Also, Champions League, European football to talk about from last weekend for the weekend because it's coming thick and fast at the moment. So, I'm joined by Nathan, Reese, and of course George, who obviously spoke his part. So, we'll obviously welcome in Nathan. Nathan, how you doing?
Yeah, folks, for having me on as usual, guys. Thank God there was no Cardiff City on this weekend to ruin my weekend even further. Hope you guys are well.
And also we've got Reese. Obviously, Reese also followed on myself as their team's game has been postponed at the weekend. Manchester United and Leeds postponed along with Chelsea and Liverpool. We'll give our thoughts on that later on. Reese, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. I'm not too bad. Good to be amongst good folks.
And obviously George has already said hello to everyone, so George will just nod his head and don't know how George is feeling. Obviously, obviously talk about United because they did when United obviously did play a game on Thursday night which they lost. We'll get on to that. So anyway, we're going to start off with obviously, as I said, no Premier League games have took place last weekend. Obviously for obviously in respect of the Queen, games will be taking place this weekend. Once again, except for 3 games. So obviously Liverpool and Chelsea has been postponed on Sunday. Manchester United Leeds on the Sunday has also been postponed along with Crystal Palace and Brighton. This is all due to placing resources or clubs. This is a club decision. This is not a decision by the police or by the Premier League. Clubs felt like the police resources were not going to be there for these big games and big rivalries that they felt it was for the sake of players, supporters, and the clubs that it was best to postpone the game. Which to a certain extent I understand. I obviously think if Chelsea were playing Forest at home, the game would have postponed. I think just because of obviously it's Liverpool and Chelsea clashing, which I think over the last few years has become a very tense game. So, for reason, but George, what do you think about this? Do you agree with this? Do you think it's one of these things where if they were postponing these games, all the games should be postponed, or do you agree that it should be a game by game circumstance?
I think for me it's probably best at a sort of game by game circumstance. There's the sort of argument. I don't know whether this is maybe going to postpone things, but then it's all going to sort of brew up when things are sort of rearranged or sort of things will we'll see things erupt in some other manner. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens in that regard. But from a personal point of view, it was actually, I was sort of saying before we went on the stream, it was actually quite nice not watching Man United this weekend. So it was quite sort of relaxing. I was able to watch an entire season of Cobra Kai on Netflix. So I'll have plenty of other things that I've got time to do during that period. So. And then obviously we've got the international break as well coming up. So it's going to be. I think the only sort of negative really, and the sort of major negative though, is that obviously for the teams that are affected by it, they'll obviously be. There's going to be a very congested fixture list. Obviously when they're rearranged, so it is quite negative from that standpoint. Especially as we know, of course, with the World Cup coming up, which has already made things even more congested because of the sort of half season. Break obviously in November to December, so it's going to be very interesting. But as it stands at the moment, obviously as you sort of spoke about briefly in the introduction as well, obviously a horrifying loss that we suffered midweek has meant that I think my sort of ardour and passion for Man United has cooled slightly from the brilliance of the 4 wins on the spin. So I'm not too mad about it, but like I said, I can understand from various fans' points of view, and also, like I said, from a player point of view, the fixture list, that it is going to be quite negative down the road.
Reece, what do you think? Obviously, Man United Leeds now, as I said, probably similar to Liverpool. Obviously, a strong police presence is required for these, for Leeds and Manchester United. And obviously, Man United, who obviously would have made the final decision since it was their home ground, felt that the game can go ahead under safe circumstances. So, do you understand the postponement, or do you think that maybe it's the wrong decision?
To be honest, I think it really does depend on how like the point of view of the people. Really, I don't. Whether they go ahead or not, I don't particularly mind. Like if we do get the games, then great. If we don't, then that's fine. It can be done at a later date. It's just about how you fit in with the public perception as well as the everyday life. I think you've got to have, as long as reality's in check and it's more in tune, then that's all that matters to me. I don't think there's anything else really that you can realistically say. Obviously, I'd like for football to be on, but it's the most important thing is perspective. I think that's like, whether you're a fan of the royal family or you're not, or whether you just respect the wishes of a family member who's passed away. I suppose it's really just like how would you want things to go on. I think it just depends on people's perspectives.
What do you think, Nathan?
Yeah, I completely agree with Reese. If I'm honest, I do think last week should have gone ahead, mainly because if you remember on Friday, the government did give the go-ahead for matches to go ahead. Cricket went ahead. Yes, rugby did get postponed in the end, but that's rugby. Who cares about rugby? But in a way, because of if they were going to have football within the next 10 days, last week was the week that they could have had it, because that's when all of the police resources would have been available. Later this week, they're not going to be. But yeah, I really think football should have been played last weekend, and then this week taking it by a game-by-game perspective of ones like, say, for example, games in London, not to go ahead, and then also the derbies as well, where they need the police presence. But I mean, there's pros and cons of it all, personally, and it is quite bad to say, but in a way, for Cardiff, Liverpool, and Celtic, it was a good game, or it was a good time for their games to be postponed, because quite frankly, I could smell the fine for us right now if the matches would have been on at the weekend, which, yeah, it's not good, but to be fair, it was probably the right decision in the end for those clubs. But it's difficult to say, really. It really is difficult to say, because at the end of the day, UK lost this head of state, so it's with whichever way you look at it, to be honest. But for me this week, keep the games on that you can, and if you can't provide the police presence, then postpone the matches for a bit. But it'll only cause issues down the line, which is quite unfair for those clubs.
The one thing I would say, I don't agree with is Arsenal and PSV being postponed on Thursday night. I don't think that made much sense. I think, there would have been enough place to be there for you.
I don't think they would have.
First night, considering that would be the only game in London. I think maybe unless that's our plan, I don't believe I don't think there's much presence needed for the Conference League. But it's going to be it's a game that should probably it's going to be difficult to find a space for that PSV game, though, because considering Europe is pretty much every other week naturally here, so trying to fit that PSV game in is probably going to be quite difficult for UEFA to figure out. But we're going to be on top of the Champions League, Europa League, etc. And we're going to go through last week's results and talk about some of the big talking points, and I think there is only one place to start with, and that is in Croatia. Obviously, Chelsea lost to Zagreb, which I think is a surprise to probably every single football fan. Was Thomas Tuchel's final game as Chelsea manager. Thomas Tuchel got sacked on Wednesday morning, and also the announcement fell, I think, around about about 9 o'clock on Wednesday morning. That the announcement came out from Chelsea that Thomas Tuchel is no longer Chelsea manager. I think George called a Zagreb win. I'm pretty certain. So maybe this result is not too surprising. But what is surprising is definitely the outcome for Thomas Tuchel in the end, where he lost his job. Now, a lot of sources, you take sources with a pinch of salt, report any sort of clicks down. It sounded like even if Tuchel won this game, he was out the door. So it seems like a decision was already made regardless of this result. So I think the result here is irrelevant. Chelsea played bad. But yeah, I want to hear I just want to hear your thoughts about Thomas Tuchel. We'll talk about Graham Potter separately, but George, obviously Thomas Tuchel wasn't given that time by the new owners, and you'd think Roman Abramovich was still running the club with a quick and rash decision has been made by the new owners.
Yeah, obviously, I think. From a Chelsea perspective as a fan, it's just all you see is ruthlessness throughout the entire club, and ultimately, obviously, Thomas Tuchel is another one who's paid the price. I know that Thomas Tuchel was very well liked. From all the sort of things that I've seen. Obviously, he had a relatively good win record as well. I know, and even obviously the form that he'd shown so far this season, actually, even at that juncture, it wasn't necessary. It wasn't, in many people's ideas, it wasn't a sackable form. It wasn't like a lot of the other times when you've sacked managers, they've been languishing somewhere like mid-table or even further back down. But we're so early in the season, and even then, I think Chelsea sixth or something along those lines, only a few points off top. So, there was there was no need to sort of pull the trigger in that regard. But of course, as you said, Josh, you do have to take lots of sources with a pinch of salt. And I often do feel like even the most what we think of as the most reputable, reliable source, I think even they bullshit sometimes. With this idea that they're sort of in the know, and they always seem to be in the know though after the fact, and that's when they actually break all these stories about what was happening. But from what I could understand, it was the fact that obviously your new owner was apparently I can't remember exactly. Again, it's sort of a few days ago, so I can't remember exactly where I heard this from. But apparently, your new owner was very much hands-on, or still is very much hands-on in terms of like who gets recruited, the day-to-day running of absolutely everything. He seems to be, has his hand in every pie, which is never a good idea. You need to obviously delegate a lot better to people who are actually, know. It's a good comment from Yeti Boy, but you need to be able to delegate and actually get people with professionalism and show a bit of trust. From what I understand, one of the sticking points or one of the conflicts that arose between Tuchel and the owner Todd Boehly was about Cristiano Ronaldo signing him. And obviously, I think Thomas Tuchel was very vehement that he wasn't going to sign him no matter what. And I think Todd Boehly, like a lot of these owners, sort of, he thinks of Ronaldo still as he still is to me, obviously, from what he's done. And Ronaldo's a superstar, but they obviously have this real thing about we've got to sign these certain players. And I know you guys were also linked with Neymar as well, so that's just another example of where they were looking for a star name as well. So. Incidentally, actually, I think Ronaldo would have actually helped you quite. I know, it seems slightly foolish, but I think he would have actually helped you because I think he's the sort of striker that you would actually have had, and I think Ronaldo can still. I think we're just obviously with ourselves not creating enough for him. Whereas I think for Chelsea, you would be able to. I think actually Boehly was correct, but you've got to stick with what Tuchel says. Ultimately, for you guys, he was a successful manager. I know, obviously, he had a terrible record in the English Cup competitions, as we know, obviously in those finals. But of course, the Champions League win, I mean, that's something that's going to live long, obviously, forever. For Chelsea fans, an incredible achievement, particularly with such a terrible squad. Ultimately,
yeah.
And he was although he did particularly rely on N'Golo Kante playing like a god for 4 matches straight in that Champions League in the latter stages. But yeah, obviously a successful time, and like I said, that's what must sting for Chelsea fans. The fact that you spent so much money and obviously backed him so heavily in the summer with different players. Do we necessarily know that the players are going to be on board with the new manager? Obviously, spoke about Potter. I think for you guys, Potter's a very exciting manager to get, though. I think he obviously, as we know, did a great job with Brighton, given the fact they spend absolutely nothing. Was always consistently trying to mix it and playing an attractive style of football. So I think despite the fact that obviously it's very ruthless and cutthroat, I think Potter made exactly the right decision coming to you guys, because if he wasn't going to do it now, he might never get the chance. I think a lot of managers, think that they're going to get a good chance, but they sort of drift away and come out of almost the limelight or spotlight. And I think Potter's star has never been higher. And I think this is the right time for him now to jump and try and make something of himself. Of course, from a rival perspective, as a Man United fan, I hope he fails miserably with Chelsea. But yeah, I always did like Tuchel. I mean, I always did think he was a good coach, but clearly it wasn't good enough for the new owner. And yeah, it's obviously sad when a manager loses his spot. But yeah, it's hopefully Chelsea don't have a successful season even with Potter.
Reece, what do you think about Thomas Tuchel's sacking?
It was pure inevitable. Unfortunately, it's through a horrible circumstance, but it's it's just inevitable that it's happened. It was clear and evident. It didn't matter what the result was going to be. He was gone. It's anything as well. You can also put the blame down to Graham Potter as well, because he was actually in communication with Todd Bowley over the summer. It was confirmed by Matt Law, very credible journalist within Chelsea as well. So if anything, an Englishman stuck it to another German, and this time with a Yank owner. So it's clear and evident. Like they've stuck it to him. It's unfortunate he's lost his job. Do I think it's the right call at the moment? No, I think Chelsea shouldn't have. I don't think they should have. But then again, if they were going to sack him, why would you let him spend a record transfer fee? Sorry, a transfer budget of players? Like, it makes no sense. Like, if you're going to sack someone, you do it straight away. You do it there and then. You don't wait. It puts your club at detriment as well. And there'll probably be some excuses saying, "Oh, but Potter was never available." Well, yeah, but it's Chelsea's influence. He would be available quite quickly, so there'd be no excuse. It just shows to me that once again Chelsea have went from being a very good run club to being an absolute shit show, like embarrassingly bad. And it's a strong reflection that there's so much to do. Graham Potter, for all the good he can do as a manager, I think he's going to be stretched. I think he's going to be stretched thin, because this is a massive job for him. He's never had this sort of experience before, and it'll be interesting to see how he handles it. I think, and the fact that his first game as well is a Champions League game puts more pressure on him. So he's not going to pass that test. But it really is embarrassing that they've gone to this extreme to get rid of him. I think they've made a massive howler. They should have sacked him in the summer or give him to the end of the season, because what you win with Potter, Nout, what you win with Tuchel, you will win a trophy. It's clear and evident already. He's won 3 trophies already. I think it was a horrible decision. I think Todd Bowley's proven he's an absolute clown. He's playing the ultimate 4D like football manager, and he's going to fall on his arse like a 3D chess piece. It's ridiculous. I feel sorry for Thomas Tuchel and Graham Potter. I hope he fails. Like, even though he's a good manager, I hope he fails, because he was involved in the sacking.
Nathan, what do you think?
A bit of a mixed one for me, to be honest. With the way Chelsea has started the season, I could see it coming, but as Reece said, with the way that they were already in communication with the football hipster king in the summer, we all knew it was going to be inevitable. But at the end of the day, you could tell their new owners did not want Tuchel in charge from further on, and that they had different plans for the club. But at the same time, was it the right time? I'd probably say not. Why give him a transfer budget when you knew in a few months you're going to sack him? You wanted to bring in Graham Potter, and then you're just going to drop down the table like a stone. But if they were going to sack him, it should have been done at least until after the international break, or even after the World Cup. And to be honest, are they the Watford owners in disguise, doing sackings this early, or is it Abramovich in disguise, quite frankly, and he's just got someone else to take over the club? But I don't know. Potter, I think he might be gone at the end of the season if he doesn't get things right, to be honest. It's going to be a long road from here, because they've got to implement his philosophy as well. I think it's going to be a complete disaster. And yeah, not good. Really not good times for Chelsea at the moment.
The way I see it with Graham Potter is it's one of two ways. It's either it's going to work out a miracle, or it's going to be the biggest car crash of the season. Because Graham Potter is either going to turn Chelsea into a good attacking team, where all of his attacking talent Chelsea do have comes together, and Potter brings it together, which maybe something Thomas Tuchel just couldn't do, because Tuchel was more, if he was defense first, attack second, where Potter's probably the opposite. Or Potter's inexperience, because Potter has never in his career, and I say his career, he's never played against low blocks. He's got no European experience. He's never had the expectations.
He does have European experience, actually.
Yeah, but not at Chelsea level. He's never expected to go on and win the Champions League or go past the group stages, sort of thing. He's never had that European experience. You can have qualifiers and group stage experience, but it's a different level when you're expected to go to quarterfinals and semi-finals of the biggest European competition.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, group stage experience, even when Ostersund and stuff actually performed well in the Europa League, and I mean, getting them from the 4th division, where is it, Swedish football, and getting them to win the league and then push on and do really well in Europe is something that isn't taken lightly. And if they have that, because I mean, you got to get European experience from somewhere at the end of the day. And the fact that he has showed that in the group stage with such tight budgets and a club like Östersunds to get it through, then that's showing something. That shows he has the experience, and that shows he should be given the opportunity to take a team like Chelsea to the next level. And I think he could be a master specialist in Europe. Premier League, I'm not too sure about. I think with what we've seen before when he was at Brighton, Swansea, that he will come in waves. He'll have a streak of where he wins like 6 or 7 games in a row and play brilliant football. Hipsters are loving it. But then he'll have those games where he just loses 6 on the bounce and the forms will come in waves. But when it comes to the Cup and the Champions League, you could be expecting some trophies there, and you can be expecting to get to some semi-finals and finals. I think that your fans have just got to give him the chance at the moment, because I don't really agree with not saying that he doesn't have the experience personally.
Well, he has the experience, but he doesn't go into games very often where he's playing against a team that are sitting pretty much on their own half, and he has to break them down. He's never probably going to a stage where he has to take Chelsea past, a quarter final of the Champions League. It's all different things you face as a manager, part and parcel of it. But it's things that he's going to have to learn quickly. And the Chelsea fans, because of how related they were to Tuchel, if this does not start, if in the first 1 month or 2 does not go well, but Chelsea fans will turn on him because a lot of Chelsea fans are still very much just. I won't say that no one's against Potter, but everyone's still in the Thomas Tuchel camp. And if this, if this starts off slowly, everyone's just going to be right on top of his back and on Potter's back. And the question is, well, he signed a 5-year deal, so if they're willing to suffer.
For me, that was the first mistake. Potter signing 5 years straight up. There's no way he's going to be there for 5 years for me. And B, at most, they should have given him 1 or 2 year contracts and say, like, look, you got 2 years to show us what you can do. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at Graham Potter's clubs, every time a bigger club has come calling, he has left straight away. I mean, Östersunds, the second he got that Swansea call up, he was straight there after they got relegated from the Premier League. And then when Brighton obviously sacked Chris Hughton, not even after a year at Swansea, Potter was like, I'm off. Same with when Chelsea approached him at Brighton, straight away, bang, I'm gone. So say, for example, somewhere from abroad comes in, I don't know, even with how unlikely it is, for example, a Barcelona, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, if they go for him, he's going to be like, right, I'm off. He'll just want a bigger job. That's the thing that does concern me with Potter. He does like to leave when he wants to.
I can't say I'm actually too surprised at that because he hasn't played any football this season, so the only way he's probably going to play football is for his country. So I think that makes logical sense for Ziyech personally, even though I remember I don't know if anybody watched that game against Zagreb, but Ziyech in that second half was bad. He was absolutely trash. Hello, Talk. Good to see you.
I didn't watch it, but what someone had very funnily done was they'd got every single touch of his, and they put together the compilation of every single touch he had in that game, and he was pretty much. It was almost like he'd actually been paid to play badly. He was that bad.
Yeah. So anyway, so Graham Potter is a big risk. It is a big risk. It's one of these for the owners. They're going to look great, or they're going to look like absolute idiots for sacking someone who probably would have kept Chelsea competitive for someone who maybe was the job was too big for his shoes. There's no middle piece. It's one of the two, but he has to start fast because if Chelsea don't beat Salzburg on Wednesday night, Chelsea are looking a little bit in trouble in their group stage, but we'll talk about the games coming up next week. So I don't know which way he's going to go. Obviously, he'll have to wait until after the international break for his first Premier League game against Crystal Palace due to the Liverpool game being postponed. Let's actually move on to Salzburg. Obviously, we'll stay in the same group. Obviously, AC Milan go away to Salzburg and get a 1-1 draw. Reece, any JJ for you? Are you starting to get worried about AC Milan in Europe again, or is this just a game where maybe a point away to Salzburg is more than good?
No, I'm not worried at all. I don't think there's any reason to be worried. I mean, Salzburg played some really good football. It was just a matter of opportunity, really. Like, Milan are still going to win the group. comfortably still going to win the group. I'm just looking and I'm thinking it was just an unfortunate like slip at the office. Like the only difference is you'll see a rebound. You'll see a rebound against Zagreb. Salzburg play good football. It's like they've done really well in Europe. I think it's a bit of a. I think to take it away from them is wrong because we've seen the results they've done the past couple of years. I think they deserve more respect than they get. If anything, Salzburg are more of a threat than Chelsea. Like Chelsea at the minute, it's hard to come by. It's hard to tell how much of a threat they are genuinely. Whereas Salzburg will come out and play you either your own game or their game. Like they can do it comfortably. And if anything, they got a well-deserved point at the end of the day. So yeah, I'm not overly concerned by Milan at all. Not concerned.
Nathan, Celtic lose 3-0 to Real Madrid. Celtic Glow, to be fair, they put a strong performance in. They give themselves good credit. I think Callum McGregor hit the bar, which was a really unlucky hit. I didn't go in the net. But Real Madrid just showed their class second half. Finished Junior against Sublime on that left hand side.
Yeah,
and Modric as well, showing his class off.
Yeah, got to say, really impressive both sides in that one. I think. Obviously, we never expected Celtic to win it in the first place, and then Real Madrid obviously came up on trumps. Just some really good performances there by Real Madrid, really starting off a pace well. But for me, with Celtic in particular, I think play like that in the rest of the group games, and then they might have a chance of getting into the knockout stages. But they just if they play like they did against Real Madrid, I think they'll just be fine. But maybe even a Europa League run for them. Do what Rangers did last season would be brilliant to watch for me personally. But yeah, it's just, I mean, you can't exactly write it and make an assessment from that one game. But ultimately, play like they did, they should be okay. But we just need to see them in the rest of the games, to be honest, moving forward in the Champions League for them.
Okay. Going back to Germany, Leipzig lose 4-1 to the Ukrainian side, Shakhtar Donetsk, who obviously aren't playing domestic football at the moment. Yeah, I know Shakhtar.
No, they are playing domestic football.
Oh, they are? I thought
Yeah, they are.
Are they playing in Poland then? I'll take it.
Yeah, they're playing in a neutral venue, but they are playing games. They're second in the league.
Well, that's good. I wasn't aware. That's the icing. I thought they were playing. That's good. But obviously, still going to Leipzig and still winning 4-1. Yeah, it's like Leipzig in the Champions League again last year. Defensively, a shambles and it's just being rolled over. Team they play.
It's just the tactics. Like I spoke on here last week saying that Leipzig were going to beat Shakhtar and smash them, and I said they're not going to win. Like I comfortably said they're not going to win because I'm just not I'm concerned by the form at the minute. And even though Marco Rose is the new manager, it means fuck all because he's a shit manager. And he was born in Leipzig. That's the even more telling part. They should have went and got Tuchel. In terms of Tedesco, I still think it was wrong.
Did Marco Rose not beat Dortmund there at the weekend?
Yeah, he beat them 3-0, but he's still a shit manager. Like I can beat Dortmund in my sleep.
No,
it's not hard.
You think sacking Tedesco's the wrong decision then?
I think it was wrong. I think the fact that he won them the cup last year, played some really good football. The problem is just getting the dynamic of the team right. It was trying to fit Werner and Kunku and Silva into one team. Like it just wasn't working the dynamic. He stuck to his favourite system. He should have made tactical changes, in my opinion. He didn't, and in the end, it's cost him his job. I think it was the wrong decision. But if anything, the one thing the Leipzig board is good at, and Olivier Manslav is good at, is recognising the situation and acting on it. They don't wait around. At least they will act if it's for the benefit of the team. It's not the benefit of just one person. It's the club's future. They will at least attack it. And they've went for Rose. Like fair enough. Like they switched to the back four. They made sure they attacked Dortmund left, right, and centre. Won 3-0 obviously, and didn't have a single shot the entire game. Dortmund. That says all just how bad they are. But in terms of the Champions League game against Shakhtar were just brilliant. They're comfortable in their system. They played fantastic football. The Ukrainian boys just know what they're doing. There's more Ukrainians in the team now than Brazilians, so it looks like they're reverting back to they're trying to escape from being called the Portuguese Ukrainian team. Sorry, the Brazilian Ukrainian team. They just want to be full on Ukrainians now. But they've got some fantastic players in there. Like Mudryk is a phenomenal player, and if he goes to Arsenal, he'll ruin his career. So hopefully he says no. But there is something about this team, and I think they could generally do well. I think Shakhtar. I don't think they'll get second in the group. I think Leipzig will still finish second in the group, but I wouldn't put it past Shakhtar getting into the Europa League and being one of the semi-finalists, depending on their fixtures and who they get in the preliminary round. I think you could see Shakhtar do a run in the competition that obviously they were the first team to win it under the new Europa League title. Like when the UEFA Cup was rebranded in 2009, the first champions were Shakhtar. I wouldn't be surprised if you see Shakhtar do well in the Europa League again, because I think they're a decent side. They play really good attacking football, and they only use possession when it matters. They don't particularly like being a possession team. They like to be high press, but when they need to dominate the ball, like they did against Leipzig, it's key, because if you hold the ball, the opposition are going to have to come at you, and they can just pass it around you. And every time they passed it around, like they just couldn't get a sniff of the ball. It was brilliant work, and they deserved the result in the end.
Nathan, PSG, you've this one. PSG came out of the charts very quickly. A brace from Kylian Mbappe. I think two very contrasting teams. A young, exciting PSG team with a good manager, a Juventus team that has not very much talent in the squad, and an outdated manager who just is not getting good results in the league at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, they're in a bit of a transition period, Juventus, aren't they? Bonucci just sort of the main star man there. Rabiot, I thought Kostic was okay as well, but they are in a Cuadrado, you could say, but they are in a bit of a transition period. But coming up against just a front three of Messi, Mbappe, Neymar, and then Verratti and Vinicius in midfield, just there's no way they were going to win that one at all. And the Champions League specialist in Sergio Ramos as well. But once again, Mbappe stole the show. 2 early goals, which finished Juventus on. They were never going to get back on the second foot of the Parc des Princes in that one. Weston McKennie getting that goal, of course, which did slip through the PSG defence. But I don't have high hopes for Juventus at the moment. Just they need to get through this transitional period for me, and I think that'll take them about a year or two. But they should be there soon.
Reece, just very quickly on Max Allegri, because he is the person to talk about. You know, he went back to his second term at Juventus, and it's been almost it's been awful. His win percentage, his results, just everything about his Juventus side has been just terrible. And he's tried so many different formations, he tried different ways, and just nothing's working. And yes, the squad is not great, but from a Juventus point of view, is Max Allegri really the manager to get them through a transitional period? Obviously, Juventus want results. I think so. Obviously, Juventus want results, and so they've gone with an experienced manager who knows how to get results. But if they're going to go through a transitional period, should they not be looking at maybe a younger manager who can build this team up with high energy in modern day football, or are they just being too safe with Allegri, who isn't really taking them anywhere at the moment?
They don't need a younger manager. They just need to freshen things up. There's you can have so much experience, but then you can have too much experience where you cannot blend anyone else into your side, and that's the problem with Juventus. Like, they've got so much experience that you cannot physically give any young player an opportunity to get in that side, and it's reflecting that the youngest player in the team that's actually worth a bit of talent is either De Ligt or Vlahovic. The rest of the team is considerably weak. Brilliant. The debt they're in makes it even better that they're going to be so far away from challenging Il Diavolo in the league, obviously, which is even more beautiful. But in terms of contrast, I think Allegri should never have went back to Juventus. Like, I think he's tarnished his entire first period of his legacy. The five titles that he won, that was absolutely impressive. The numerous cup doubles, the 2 Champions League finals that they didn't win, you would have fought over that period. Like, Allegri, just like I said in another stream last night, it's Allegri and Simeone are the 2 managers you probably say deserve a Champions League title for what they did over the last decade. But now you're looking at it and you think only one of them deserves it, and that's Simeone. Allegri's went and completely tarnished his legacy. It's not going to work. I think they made a massive mistake getting rid of Pirlo. I know Pirlo doesn't have a lot of managerial experience, but I think right now, building a young team, it was actually going pretty well, and he was getting them somewhere. He just didn't have enough. I think generally, if Pirlo had stayed, I think Chiellini may have stuck around at Juventus another year, maybe joined his backroom staff, gave him a little bit more stability in the behind the scenes. Juventus are in major trouble, and going forward, they will need something additional. I think it's clear and obvious. I think for me, I don't think they're waiting for Deschamps to leave France. I think they're waiting for Zinedine Zidane to declare if he wants to go. Zidane's always wanted to go to Juventus, back to Juventus. So's Deschamps. I think it's whoever pulls the bullet first in their career. I think if they really want to be smart, I would probably go over Zidane. I think he's already free. He's already there. He could easily make these experienced players actually thrive again, and he could blend them out and bring in some younger, top talented teams, because Juventus will still have influence to bring players in. And there's a lot of good players in that squad, like Locatelli. McKennie's a bit of an average player, but under a good manager, like at his peak, he would become a better player. Vlahovic would thrive, I think, and I said it last night as well when I was on Doug Stream last night, that the influence of Dybala is a big loss on them. I don't care what anyone says about his injury record or his lack of consistency. Paulo Dybala for the past 5 years has probably been their best attacking player. And that includes Ronaldo. Like, Ronaldo was amazing at Juventus, but you look at how Ronaldo actually thrived scoring goals, winning the league. It was because of Dybala's movement, his creativity. They miss that type of player. Vlahovic can't do it on his own. They don't have a midfield to do it as well. Pogba's going to struggle once he comes back from injury. Like, he doesn't seem to, under Allegri, he's not going to find his best position as well. I think that's going to be a struggle. Kostic, I think, made a massive mistake. I think he's made a massive mistake personally going to Juventus. Cuadrado's finished. And they've not got a stable goalkeeper anymore either. Like, they're not playing Chesney, they're playing Perrin, who isn't particularly great either. I just look at that Juventus team and I see a long way back for them. Like, hopefully half a decade, maybe longer would be perfect, but it'll be like 2 or 3 years. But there's a lot of shite that needs to be kicked to that club. It's similar to Man United. It was similar to AC Milan over the last decade. Like, there's so many players in there on big contracts that are going to take so much out of that squad where they cannot invest in players that actually genuinely improve their team. And it's evident by the fact that they are struggling, especially in the league. They are miles behind Milan and Napoli already. I think that says it all, really, for me. And obviously losing to Salernitana last week, bottom of the league, like losing 2-1 when they were 2-0 down. You're now losing the Champions League to the team probably favourites to win it as well. Like, I think PSG are perhaps the favourites right now. You look at it and you think, can Juventus get out of this group? I'm saying no. I think Benfica will beat them home and away. I think Benfica will go through, like I said last year when they picked Barcelona. I've got the same feeling this year. Juventus are in major trouble. If they want to do something, they better hope that Allegri doesn't make it worse for them this year. But next year, sack him. Like, they have to sack him. Otherwise, they are even more screwed than they already are. Like, Allegri used to be a manager I had a lot of respect for. But ever since he went back to Juventus, he's fucked. I think getting rid of Sarri as well was another mistake. I feel sorry for Sarri. Like, he was changing Juventus dynamic and he's actually playing good football. Like, he's another manager. Like, he got shit on by Chelsea fans like Rory Jennings because he doesn't understand football. And you've got, in this circumstance, they got rid of Sarri at Juventus. Like, there's no dynamic of that team anymore. There's no dynamic behind the scenes. The playing squad is too old. And any young player hoping to get into that squad, it's like United with youth players. I think George will agree. Our playing squad, like, at times there's some good players in there, but it's not still a good environment for a youth player to go straight in that squad and give you that sense of urgency, unless you're like Garnacho for us. Like, you know he will turn up. Juventus don't have that, and that's something that's going to really set them back for a long time. Run over.
Oh, it's a good pizza, man. That's why I came to you. So moving on to Scott McTominay's biggest fan. Manchester City 4, Sofia 0. Erling Haaland shines on the European stage again, like he did for Borussia Dortmund. Him, I know we keep saying this, but Haaland and City really are going to be a pain in the ass for any defensive stop this season in any competition. And I know we said every year about Manchester City and the Champions League, but is this really the year for Manchester City to go on and win it with him as their number 9?
Possibly. I think, the one thing I found funny about Haaland, I don't know if anyone else, you probably did because it was trending everywhere again, but Haaland was spotted out in Manchester by some Manchester United fans, and where it was saying, come to United, you go to the wrong side of Manchester, which I found quite funny, because I think that sort of sums up the reason I sort of brought that up is because I think that sort of sums up Haaland's mentality. You know, the fact that most footballers, as we know, go out with an entourage, quite correctly, really, because you never know what, who can be out there who will do, harm to someone just out of jealousy or anything along those lines. So it's quite unusual to see someone. I know obviously Haaland's, massive, and it's going to be very unlikely that anyone's going to, mess with him. But again, you like I said, you just never know. But the reason I bring that up is because I think what City have missed in those moments, much as Guardiola likes to try and pretend it isn't that, but it is a winner's mentality. We've seen it so often over the years with his team, and it was never more, it was never more obvious or transparent as it was last season. Obviously, with those two goals within the last few minutes, that there is a real distinct brittleness to Man City. It's all, the thing is, it's always the hardest to win your first trophy in a certain competition. Man City themselves will know that as well, of course, with what happened with the Aguero moment, where they were so close again to losing out. But of course, you've got, in that juncture, they had a man of Sergio Aguero, who turned out to be, as I think all of us, even as rival fans, or whatever it might be. I think we all recognise him as a prodigious talent, of course, and Aguero was the difference then. So potentially Haaland might be the difference in terms of the Champions League. And like I said, Haaland does seem almost robotic in some ways, or he does seem to have a very good mentality, a strong mentality. And and obviously we know as well that for Real Madrid, my favourite player of all time, Cristiano Ronaldo, the amount of times he bailed Real Madrid out, or he bails teams out because he takes everyone on his shoulders and carries them over the line. And that's what Haaland's going to have to try and do for Man City, because there will come points in the Champions League inevitably where the team is lacking, or when they come up against an actual strong team, because Man City tend to have a lot of times where they go up against weak teams, and then as soon as they go up against a strong team is when they really sort of struggle. Or a team that's actually resilient and can defend against them. I think that's the difference. But obviously Haaland gives them a different option, and obviously he's got a prolific record. But as I said, it's whether he's got the force, and he's still very young, whether he's got the force to be able to, in those key moments, those moments when the chips are down, he has to be the one that gets the goal. Because of course they did have opportunities against Real Madrid, as we know. Obviously Grealish, in particular, had opportunities, so he could have killed the game. But they didn't obviously do it. And I still think if I was putting my life on it, I still don't think Man City will win the Champions League this year. And I still would have reservations about PSG as well. So I think, but inevitably, as we all know, and that's what they always say, isn't it? It's that, every season, every year, at some point, inevitably they will do it. But it might take, it's always most difficult winning that first one. That's why, as we know, that's why Real Madrid have won this many Champions Leagues in the last few years, is because they've got players who've been there, done that, worn the T-shirt, and they know exactly how to win these competitions. So yeah, it's always difficult with that first one. But like I said, Haaland will make a difference, I think. But is he going to make a difference to that defence as well? Because we all know as well, any shot on goal that Ederson's got is a goal, because he can't save anything. So and that hasn't really solved that particular dilemma. So yeah, as I said, I still think Man City will struggle. But again, as you know as well yourself, Josh, we were talking about Tuchel doing a great job with Chelsea, but we all know that Chelsea got a relatively easy hand in terms of the draw. Obviously, everyone was, all the memes were going around about Porto in that quarter-final, and Chelsea were the 1 out of 7 that got to draw them. So yeah, the draw will make a big difference as well. And we all know as well that Man City have got enough money to pay. We've often suspected in the English leagues that they do pay for more favourable draws. So, but yeah, as I said, I don't think Man City will win the Champions League. No, if you're asking me right now.
Moving on to the Wednesday game, starting off with a very exciting end between Atletico Madrid and Porto. So obviously Porto went down to 10 men. Atletico Madrid thought they scored the winner, where Erasmo scored on the 91st minute for it. Then Porto decided to get a penalty to make it 1 each, and then 16-minute man who Simeone does not sub Griezmann before 60 minutes, so he doesn't have to pay the buyout clause that is set in his loan contract with Barcelona, which is absolutely hilarious. Comes on and scores the winner in the 90. I think in the in the 11 minutes of stoppage time in the 90th minute. If you have to sum up the Champions League, the first 80 minutes of this game was a bore fest. It was two defensive teams not wanting to try and win the game, but the last 10 minutes was just utter crazy, and it's just the Champions League in a nutshell.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the sort of performance you'll get from Atletico Madrid. We've seen it, and with them under Simeone for years, where they'll just hold it back and then lay off the last few minutes and then fully go for it and catch them off guard. Where, say, for example, because it's going to happen to Porto as well, where their defense just gets completely overwhelmed in the last 10. They're tired. They'll just completely tire them out, grind them out, and then probably sneak a 1 or 2-0 because they can't get that defensive structure back there. But it's a tricky one to predict, that one, because it's the question of what sort of performance and what sort of Porto team will end up turning up. But yeah, it is Atleti, isn't it, in a group stage of the Champions League, where Atletico Madrid will be Atletico Madrid, where they will just hold it back and then strike in the last 10 minutes and absolutely murder Porto.
Moving on to Reece. Very, very, I'm going to put this in a very simple terms. Rangers got a football lesson from Ajax, didn't they?
Football lesson would be an understatement, mate. That was a football journey. That was probably how many years have I been watching football? Let's see, this is 2022. 22 years. That's probably for 90 minutes. That is the most complete team performance I've ever seen.
Wow.
And that includes every single domestic league, European football, cup competition, international game, Germany getting spanked, England getting spanked, all of them sort of things. Like, I've seen all this, like, I've done all that. That is probably the most perfect performance I've ever seen. And it was against a club that I've supported since I was a child. Completely insulting. In terms of Ajax, the transition was perfect. It didn't look like they've sold players. Like, it genuinely looks like they haven't let anyone go. Like, that's the scary part. That's the scary part of this squad. It looks like nobody's actually left. It looks like they've just like transmorphed into something else. Schroeder's got them playing some fantastic football. And I'm saying this now, like, Liverpool fans, if they're watching, that's if they're not out of their Naples caves yet, yous are getting spanked at Anfield off Ajax. Ajax are going to roll up to Anfield and they're walking out with a clean sheet and 3 points. I genuinely think Ajax are going to go and turn them over. I had Napoli to win the group. I'm thinking I might be wrong on this one. I think Ajax are actually going to be the ones that do it. But the way they played last week was honestly perfect. Like, from start to finish, like, they had complete control. Like, the minute the first goal went in, I knew it was going to be a rough night. But then the second and the third goals were within a couple of minutes apart. It was awful defending. It was a flashback to the Old Firm game. Like, that's just how bad it is. Like, the transfixion of the defence just could not cope at all. Like, Bergwijn was an absolute menace. Tadic was complete control. Kudus in the false nine role just knew his role really well, and they were so even from the back as well. They just had complete control. Calvin Bassey settled into them. Like, fair play to them. I'm glad he's settled in there. Would have preferred him being in blue, obviously, because then would have been a much easier performance for us. But unfortunately, he's now gone on to better things. And this is a team that's been unbeaten since losing in the Charity Shield at the very start of the season. They haven't lost a game since. They've won every game. Like, it's going to be very hard to stop Ajax this year unless you've got sheer quality in your team or you catch them like ball watching on the odd break. It's a very well blended side and it's going to be really hard to stop them. And the way they turned up as well against Rangers, like, I had Rangers to win just because Rangers' European form has been so much better. I'm generally more worried about how long Van Bronckhorst stays in the job. If it was up to me, he'd be sacked tomorrow. But I'm looking at it and I'm thinking it's genuinely the most complete performance I've ever seen in football. And that's not even a joke.
Moving on to Scott McTominay's biggest fan. And if you give this game, so obviously Napoli 4, Liverpool 1. You know, I wouldn't say Liverpool were given a football lesson of sorts, but Liverpool were exposed, and Joe Gomez and Trent Alexander-Arnold on that right-hand side were at the staff because Trent was literally ball watching on the second goal. Gomez was getting ran around. The midfield was non-existent. You know, Liverpool were given a reality check in Naples on Wednesday night.
Yeah, I mean, it was very, very entertaining. The thing is, it could actually have been a lot worse. It could actually have been a lot worse because Napoli should have got a lot more goals. Alisson actually, to his credit, did quite a good job. Obviously, with some saves, obviously the penalty save as well. At vital junctures, because that could have been an absolute cricket score.
I agree.
I think obviously, as you said, Josh, there's two. It's not just those two players, but the two real dangers on there. Obviously, Joe Gomez. I think that's a player that Liverpool need to start looking to move on, because I don't think he's very good. Trent Alexander-Arnold. It's time for Klopp to sort of get him in the room and lock him in until he agrees to defend, or show some sort of semblance of unity or work ethic within the team. I mean, it's quite funny actually, because of course I could see the fallout from that game. Again, we all know that Liverpool's a very widely supported club, and obviously it's got lots and lots of fans. And of course, you see, as I sort of scroll through TikTok, you see that or Twitter, you see the various meltdowns from their fans who are just now starting to realise that the fans of every other club who've told them for years on years that Trent's shit might actually have a point now. Because when you see,
I would just like to say as well, for all the Liverpool fans that have watched us in the World of Football podcast for the past 2.5 years, that's for slaughtering me about. That's for slaughtering me about Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Consistent about Trent constantly every week, and honestly, that Napoli game has proved to me Trent is not a right back. He is a midfielder or even a winger.
Yeah,
he's
Reece James is the
not a
best right
defender.
back in the league.
Thank you.
no.
He's
He's
better
the
than
best.
Trent.
No, he's the best English right back. He's the best English right back, but you know full well the best full back is Cancelo. Don't start your bollocks. Don't start, or all three of us will fly to Ireland and give you a lesson in full backs, mate.
I don't live in Canada. I thought I was just too wasting your money.
Respect your fullback elders. Respect your elders, boy.
Yeah, but I think from Liverpool's point of view, they are struggling quite horribly at the moment. And again, of course, I think things like the international break will come at a good point. I think the World Cup as well, sort of trying to get players back and organise things. But ultimately, Trent Alexander-Arnold has been, I think he has been the ultimate system player. A player who's never been able to thrive unless a system specifically catered for him. There's a reason that I'm a big critic of Gareth Southgate, of course. I think he's, despite the fact that he's done well in terms of where he's got to with England in tournaments and stuff like that. There's always been moments where, well, again, I don't want to make this a boring rant, but terrible substitutions, lack of tactics, all sorts of things where it's very, very poor in-game decisions from Southgate. But one of his few redeeming features has been the fact that he never picks Trent Alexander-Arnold, because he realises that unless he's got a specific system for him, he cannot play as right back. And obviously that's why he always has Walker, as well as obviously Walker's recovery pace and other assets as well, and attributes. But yeah, it's the reason that Trent Alexander-Arnold never plays for England. It's because again, the system just isn't right for him. I think also as well, obviously, I have found it quite funny because another thing that you'll often find trending on Twitter as well these days is Van Disney instead of Van Dijk, which I do find quite funny as well. But
Van Drunk.
I think a lot of sort of people have made a good point though, which is that in a system that is like Liverpool's, we all know as well that they play a very high line, and everything's like minute, everything's like to the precise detail. And as soon as that's goes slightly off, you suddenly, or teams work out how to play against it, then they run them ragged, because it's all about this precise nature of it. And again, obviously, I've spoken about this previously as well. I think the players now are sick of Trent Alexander-Arnold. And obviously Joe Gomez is shit anyway. I think I don't quite know why
He was a liability against Napoli, straight up.
I think going forward, they need to give Calvin Ramsey a shot. I mean, this is like, I hate Liverpool, but I think generally, like, they're like right now, like, they need to change that whole back four because Robertson's off the pace. Van Drunk is nowhere near it. Like, I think generally they should play Kanati and Matip as their centre backs.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be. I think Klopp will get it right again, sadly, because I think that's just what he'll do. But hopefully, it'll be too late for their season in terms of winning trophies. And obviously, Reece has spoken about it as well. They're going to have to fix up and look sharp in terms of the group stages, because of course there's some very dangerous sides in that group that can take it away from them very easily. Which would be quite funny, but of course then they come down to the Europa with us, which
I think Rangers will turn up against them. I think Rangers will get beat. I think Rangers will get beat of Napoli. Like, I think they will. I think Napoli are too strong. Like, with or without Osimhen, they're too strong. But Rangers could get a result because there's no, like, Napoli fans are banned from Glasgow, and obviously Rangers fans are banned from Naples over policing, which is ridiculous. But I think Rangers will turn up against Liverpool. I think Rangers will be the team that they slip up against the most, and I think that is, for me, great. But I think in the circumstance, like, their whole team dynamic, it's the same players week in, week out. Like, Klopp has clearly shown favouritism, and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, it's actually becoming such a detriment to Liverpool that they are going to fade fast. They were billed as the team that were going to be the best challengers, and I got laughed at for saying Spurs are going to finish second in the league. Just want to remember that. I got laughed at. But right now, which team would you actually be more believable are going to finish second in the league? It's clearly Tottenham. Shut up, you. You're not even going to finish in the top four.
I think the final player that I just wanted to touch on as well is there's a few others as well. Obviously, Nunes is an example as well, but is Mo Salah. I think not Jota. I think Mo Salah, for me. Everyone is sort of making memes about the fact that he was a constant FPL captain for people last season because of his goals and stuff. But
I captained him for like 4 weeks this year, and he's constantly blank.
He just doesn't score. But I did say at the time, actually, when Liverpool gave him that big contract, I did say that they might live to regret that, because as Manchester United fans, me and Reece know that whenever we give players big contracts, we've got a history of many players who've been absolute shit. As soon as you give them that big contract, I think obviously David De Gea, again, a lot of this might get in a bit of trouble here from a lot of Man United fans who still rate him, but that was a terrible mistake. Obviously Alexis Sanchez as well, coming to the end of his career. I think Mo Salah, it's going to be very interesting to see whether his career continues to stagnate or he continues to decrease, or whether he is going to be able to reverse this form, because it's not just the start of this season where he's been terrible. It's actually obviously ever since the AFCON, pretty much, when he had that obviously terrible experience in terms of the AFCON World Cup qualifiers, those sort of things. So it's going to be very interesting, and they have to get him firing, because Mo Salah is, I think, obviously, as Reece has said before, obviously Mane was more important to the team, but I think Mo Salah as well does provide that goal. You do need someone who's going to get those goals, and that's what Mo Salah was providing. And when he's not giving those goals, he's not really providing anything else. And I think
like you said as well, when he didn't get the support from Mane either.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. A lot. That's going to be Klopp's biggest things are fix the midfield, fix the defence, and fix the forwards. I think the only thing he's got of his 4 areas that's okay at the moment is Alisson in goal. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Liverpool.
All right, so moving on to the Champions League predictions for game week 2, and then we'll move on to Manchester United in the Europa League, and then we'll move on to we'll talk the English Premier League games that are taking place this weekend before cancelling the show. So, starting off with Group A, obviously the groups are obviously now being played on opposite days, so the teams are playing on Wednesday, playing on the Tuesday, and the teams are playing on Tuesday and are playing on Wednesday. That's the way it works. So, starting off with Liverpool and Ajax at Anfield. Nathan, what's your prediction?
Don't know. It really depends on how Liverpool approach this one. 1-1. 1-1 draw.
Reece?
I'm going with the same prediction I had on Doug's show last night. 2-0 Ajax.
Scott McTominay fan.
I'm going to say it's difficult, because Liverpool Anfield on a European night is very, very different. I think Blood and Thunder game, I think 2-2.
Bayer Leverkusen, who are, as we come back up, are really struggling in the Bundesliga at the moment. Like, their form is as bad as it can get up against Atletico Madrid.
3-1 Atleti.
Right.
If you watched Doug's stream last night, you'll know what's coming from me. 4-0 Atletico.
Yeah, Bayer Leverkusen are really bad at the moment. Like,
They
it's
miss Florian
astonishingly
Wirtz. They miss Florian Wirtz like so much. Like he is by far the best player in their team, and Diaby's not up to snuff.
bad. George?
2-1 Atletico. I think they sometimes they tend to make these things difficult. So yeah, 2-1 Atletico.
FC Porto and Club Brugge. I said Club Brugge were going to win last week because of how good their home record is in the Champions League, and I ended up being right. But this time they're away to Porto. They're away to Porto in Portugal. Porto obviously probably need a result here, Nathan.
Oh gosh. Come back to me on that one.
Okay, Reese.
I think I said 2-1 Porto last night because it's in. Even though Taremi got sent off for the worst form of diving I've seen since Neymar, who crazy enough has had complete perfect stats this entire month. I'll have to give him a little bit of respect, even though he's a diving clown. He's still a mad player. I think Evan Nielsen's going to step up for them, and they've still got some quality players like Pepe on the wing. Like he's a brilliant player, and they've got their manager's got the style, and the system's floated really well. Bruges, they did have a good game last week, but I reiterate it. I still think they'll selling their best player, AC Milan, will be their downfall. In De Ketelaere, they don't have that attacking, that extra threat. Noah Lang's a big miss as well. So yeah, I'm going with 2-1, and I think Evan Nielsen will get a brace.
George?
3-1 Porto.
Nathan, what is it?
I was a bit unsure about this one, but I've reached into the stats on this one, and there's two things that stick out like a sore thumb for me. Porto have not lost to Club Brugge since the 1970s in Europe. They last time they played them at home. Oh my! Last time they played them at home, they won 1-0. And not only that as well, Porto have lost their last 3 Champions League games. They have never lost 4 in a row in Europe. I am going to go 1-0 Porto.
Victoria plays on against Inter Milan, who were lucky to win at the weekend. Inter Milan were shockingly bad, but I think it needed a goal going across the line for the 3 points. Nathan, what do you think?
I'm going to go fine margins here. I think I'm going to go 2-1 into Milan.
Reese?
1-1 draw.
To be fair, Victoria is a very difficult place to go. Their quality
hostile environment, and their squad isn't good enough. Inter's not good enough, in my opinion.
George?
I'll stay with what Nathan said, 2-1 Inter.
Yeah. Roman Lewandowski's return to Munich as Barcelona travel to the struggling Bayern Munich. As I said just before you joined, that Bayern Munich were bad against Stuttgart on Saturday. Bayern Munich were really lucky, really lucky to get away with the draw. I thought Stuttgart actually outplayed them in their own backyard, but that's a team that just about stayed up in the league last year. And now they're going to play Barcelona, who are in the opposite form. Barcelona are playing exceptionally well. Lewandowski, surprise, is scoring goals. Nathan, what do you think?
My instinct is to go 5-2 Bayern, but I'm going to go Desmond's 2-2.
2-2. Right.
Well, I've already put in the chat, everybody knows how much I rate Nagelsmann. I think he's still a brilliant manager, but he's constantly chopping and changing his lineup, and I think that's going to have a rough effect on him. Bayern have got a brilliant record as of late against Barcelona, but I'm a big Nagelsmann fan, but I can't believe I'm going to say this. I'm going Barcelona to. I can't remember what I said last night score-wise, but I said Barcelona to win. I think I said 3-2 Barca. But I think this is Nagelsmann's last game as Bayern manager, and I think Thomas Tuchel will be the next Bayern manager. I hope he doesn't get the sack, but I think he will. Which would be horrible.
I think that's 4 straight games now in the Bundesliga or Bayern Munich have dropped points, so I think Nagelsmann is big negative on Israel, and I said Barcelona do come to Bayern Munich and win. It doesn't look good on them. George, what do you think? George has got someone talking in his room, so we will come back to George on that game. Sporting Lisbon and Hotspur. This is a potential banana skin for Spurs. We're going away to Sporting, who obviously went away to Frankfurt last week and completely destroyed them. Means that the Sporting Lisbon team are not a team to be overlooked. So, Nathan, what do you think?
This is tough for me. If this was in Tottenham, I probably would have said 2-0 Spurs, just because of the way they have started in the Champions League. But, oh, gosh, 1-1 draw. 1-1 draw.
Right.
I also had the same thing last night because I thought it was over there. It's actually in Portugal. I've actually gone for a 0-0 draw.
Scott? Oh, no, Scott. I think Scott was my biggest fan.
1-1 draw I'll go for.
What's your Bayern Munich prediction?
So Bayern 3, Barcelona 1.
Ooh, interesting.
Okay. Go against the other teams in form. And then the final game on the Tuesday, Marseille, who were really good against Spurs and probably kept 11 men on the pitch, probably would have got something from that game. Up against Frankfurt, who are also struggling in Bundesliga and also suffered a really bad defeat to Sporting Lisbon last week at home. So what do you think, Nathan?
Tough one again. I'm going to say again, 1-1 draw.
Reece?
They also lost 1-0 to Wolfsburg as well at home, whereas Marseille beat Lille 2-1. I've gone for Marseille win. I've actually gone for 4-1 Marseille at the Velodrome. I think Sanchez is going to have an absolute field day against them. Like Frankfurt, frankly, they're not looking like the team that won the Europa League. Like, they don't look at all. They look completely flat. They look deprived. The big loss is Kostic as well. Like, it's a massive loss. And Mario Götze, for all the creativity he provides, he hasn't been up to snuff for them. Like, the team has fallen flat, and like even Boer as well, he isn't getting enough service. I think they're in genuine trouble. But I think for Marseille, like it's pretty much Arsenal versus Frankfurt, because the vast majority of that team is ex-Arsenal players. I think you're going to see something. I think Marseille will leave comfortably with the 3 points and goals. So yeah, I think I'm going with 4-1. I think I said 3-1 last night, but I can't remember. But 4-1 either way. I don't care. I still predicted a Marseille win.
George?
3-1 Marseille.
All right, moving on to Wednesday's fixture. Rangers welcome Napoli to the Ibrox. Yeah, this is where the Ibrox, could obviously either Napoli could be way too strong, or will the Ibrox atmosphere get Rangers a result, Nathan?
This is going to put a big smile on my face. I am going to go for 3-1 Napoli.
3-1 Napoli, really?
You bastard. You absolute bastard. There is no away fans, which is it's an interesting thing. There is no away fans. The away fans have been banned, which I think is ridiculous. I'd love to have had the Neapolitans over. But I also actually, funnily enough, said on Doug Stream last night, I said 3-1 minimum Napoli. I think Rangers, I think the Ibrox atmosphere will be great for them, but they're in bad sort of form. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst is not learning from his lessons, and I'm genuinely worried about Rangers' performance going into the game. I think Napoli, even with or without Osimhen, are still a strong side. They control the ball really well. They are flying right now in Serie A. They're only ahead in the league because of goal difference. Don't worry, they're going to finish second behind Milan, obviously. But in terms of controlling the ball really well, they're brilliant with and without the ball. They press extremely well. Rangers just look flat. They keep relying on Ryan Kent, who is as reliable as my first shit today. Like, he's an absolute clown with a ball hog. Honestly, I'd sell him. I think they need to drop and play Matondo, but I don't know. I said 3-1 minimum because I'm genuinely worried. I think if Rangers do lose this game heavy, then he is gone. I think that depending on the result, Van Bronckhorst is gone. Since I've heard Nathan's prediction, I know which game I'll be heavily marking then.
George?
Rangers 2, Napoli 3.
AC Milan hosts Zagreb. Nathan?
3-0 AC Milan.
Reese?
I don't see us keeping a clean sheet. It was a very sloppy conceded goal against Sampdoria the weekend, although fantastic response with Giroud winning the penalty and scoring it. I'm going for the exact same result from the weekend. I'm going 2-1 Milan. I don't think we'll keep a clean sheet.
And George?
Yeah, 2-1 Milan.
Graham Potter's first game as Chelsea bosses. They welcome Salzburg to Stamford Bridge. Nathan?
Shock result 1-0 Salzburg.
Reese?
2-0 Salzburg.
George?
Much as I'd like to, I'm very tempted to once again predict Chelsea to lose. I think you'll see a new manager bounce. Unfortunately, it's all it's Taylor's old as time that all the players start turning up as soon as a new manager turns up. So I think Chelsea 2-1.
Well, sorry guys, we've had a technical fault with our stream. Don't know what's happened. Sorry, apologies. We've just had a mechanical issue.
Fuck you, yeah.
No,
There we go.
hipsters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Shakhtar Donetsk hosts Celtic in, I'm assuming it's Poland. I'm assuming Shakhtar played that game. So, will Celtic get a result in Poland? George?
No. I think 2-1 to Donetsk.
Nathan?
You're going to love my prediction, Reese. You know what's coming. 2-0 Celtic.
Reese?
2 wins for either side, no draws in their head-to-head records. So by proxy, 4-0 Shakhtar.
Real Madrid host Marco Rose's at Leipzig. George?
I'm not going to, in any of these predictions, I'm pretty much never going to go against Real Madrid. So I think 3-1 Real Madrid.
Nathan?
2-1 Real Madrid.
Reese?
I've also gone 2-1 Real Madrid. I think, for all the result against Dortmund, anyone can beat Dortmund. It's a different response going up against Real Madrid. But if anything, though, I think some of these players in this game, you'll start to see them click really well in the new system. They'll start to find their form. I think Werner's going to enjoy the game against the Real Madrid defence. I think Nkunku's going to be tough to handle. And depending who else plays, maybe it might be Szoboszlai, who scored a beautiful goal at the weekend. We'll see. But I think looking at it, I think they'll get something. I don't think they're going to win this game, but I think you'll start to see their performances pick up in the doubleheader against Celtic, which obviously is coming up very shortly. But I think, Real Madrid will just marginally edge this one, and they'll remain unbeaten in the group. I think Real Madrid will get 18 points from 18, to be honest.
Copenhagen welcomes Sevilla, who are just near the bottom of La Liga, though, and Lopetegui is hanging on for his job by the clutch of his vest. And obviously, a lot of good city end of the Lopetegui and Sevilla. George, what do you think?
1-0.
Nathan?
As it's parking, I'm going to go 0-0.
Reese?
1-1 Lopetegui gets sacked.
Manchester City welcome German giants Borussia Dortmund. Dortmund have not fared so well against Manchester City in the past. Will tomorrow be any different, George? Sorry, Wednesday, not tomorrow.
Yeah, and obviously Haaland against his old side as well. So I think it's going to be another terrible. I think it could be another landslide. I think City 3-0.
Nathan?
4-1 Manchester City, Erling Haaland hat-trick.
Reese?
8-0 Man City, Erling Haaland double hat-trick.
I should just say all the Champions League ties being played in the United Kingdom are not going to have the Champions League anthem played. That was a decision made today. Juventus welcome Benfica. George?
Juventus 2-1.
Nathan,
1-1.
Reese.
2-0 Benfica.
And then the final result is that Romanian side, Maccabi Haifa, whatever the hell you could.
Maccabi Tel Aviv.
Maccabi
I
Tel
can't say
Aviv.
the name. Hosting Paris Saint-Germain. George.
Well, Paris Saint-Germain do have a history of they do sometimes they do struggle in these sort of matches, but obviously in relatively good form. Lots of people shouting out Messi for all his amazing feats in the Farmers League. I'm pretty sure I could post a few good stats if I was playing in the French league. But
I'd scored 100 goals in my first season and retire a rich man.
I think so. I think PSG 3-0 to PSG.
Nathan.
6-0 PSG.
Reese.
Mbappe hat-trick, Messi 2 goals.
I think it'll be a high-scoring game in Paris. I said that last night. My exact words: it'll be a high-scoring game in Paris when these two play in the match day 5. But I've actually gone for 2-1 PSG. I think the hostile environment. I don't think they'll score heavy, but they will at least take whatever chance they will get. I think Maccabi will put some pressure on them, and PSG have a tendency to concede very sloppy goals. So it wouldn't surprise me really if they do concede one.
A special mention for the Tuesday night fixtures as Cardiff City travel away to Middlesbrough. Go on, George. What's your prediction for that?
Well, I know now Reece has got even more reason to get his own back on this one, hasn't he?
Thanks for reminding me.
I'm going to be. Let's be honest. Actually, I think unfortunately it's more misery. I think 2-1 Middlesbrough.
Reese.
5-0 Middlesbrough.
Knew that was coming.
Nathan, what's your prediction?
First of all, may I add that Middlesbrough midweek away is an absolute disgrace.
No, it's beautiful.
I can't even back us. I'm going to go 1-1, and I'm hoping for the best. Definitely not
And don't worry, Bluebird Legend, because you're in the live chat. That 5-0 is not for you. That's for Nathan.
What's
as
your
punishment,
prediction?
honourable punishment. That's the law of the jungle.
So moving on to the Premier League. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to just give our predictions for the Premier League and a little bit of thought about the games to close it off. Obviously, we've got the Premier League to reflect on, but we do have Premier League games to review for the ones that are going ahead. So starting off with the 2 games on the Friday night. Not very often we get spoiled 2 games on the Friday night. I'm not too sure which games on sports. I want you to correct me. So we've got Aston Villa and Southampton, and then Nottingham Forest and Fulham. One of those games will be on Sky. I'm not too sure which one of these 2 do you know.
I'll be surprised if it's the Forest game. I'll be surprised if the Forest Fulham game's on, because all the London games are being moved. I think if they really want to play it smart, you put Villa on TV so you can watch Gerrard get absolutely ripped apart.
Yeah.
Well, let's go. So Steven Gerrard obviously got a good result against Manchester City, which I believe was their last league game. We come up against Southampton, who are starting. Obviously people in our predictions, none of us actually think doubted Southampton massively in our predictions. We all said Hasenhüttl had enough to probably keep this team going. So
I had them relegated, to be fair.
Go on, tough times. So what do we think? Gerrard versus Hasenhüttl, both managers needing to win. Southampton probably just a little definitely better in form at the moment. A loss here would probably be a big hamper in Steven Gerrard coffin as he probably gets closer to the sack of his having. So what do you think, George? It's a tough game to call. Both teams probably just evenly matched on paper.
I think both of those games that obviously the Friday games are actually very tough ones to call. Actually, I think this one's probably going to be a stalemate. I think both teams will try to sort of cancel each other out, as you sort of mentioned. Both managers in certain ways are, flirting with danger in terms of their sort of tenures at their respective clubs. So I think they'll sort of cancel each other out, and I'd have a 1-1 draw. That's my prediction.
Nathan?
I think this is going to be top heavy on the one side. For me, can't really see where Southampton's goals are going to come from, but I can see where Villa's will. I'm going to go 2-0 Villa.
Reece?
I think it's going to be an interesting game. I've always liked the neutrality of Southampton and the managerial work of Hasenhüttl, but obviously I've criticised him heavy in the summer about not spending at all on him, like backing him properly, which is going to be a problem. But Villa are still an odd team. Like they should be doing so much better with the quality players they've got. I don't think you're going to see either team pick up a result. I think a result that favours them. I think it'll be a 1-0 draw. To be honest, I don't really see anything really. I think Villa, they'll try something, then they'll just slip up like they always do. And I think Southampton will just make the most of an opportunity if they have a striker that actually knows how to find the goal.
I'm going to go 2-0 Southampton. I think they're starting to get into the room now. I think Aston Villa I just think Steven Gerrard's system and the way he's assembling the players, it's just everything wrong with that squad. He's just not playing the right system with them. Nottingham Forest, who suffered a terrible and a meltdown against Bournemouth in the last set of Premier League games, where they were 2-0 up and suffered a 3-2 defeat at home, which was bad. They welcome Marco Silva's Fulham, who I put Fulham bottom of the Premier League, and I'm starting to regret that because Fulham actually look like they're actually going to fight up in the Championship this year. And Mitrovic is scoring goals, which is the opposite to what I said they would do this year. But credit to Marco Silva. I was during the weekend playing them, so I'm kind of happy I can go postponed in that sense. George, what do you think?
Yeah, she spoke about Nottingham Forest. That was a terrible bottle job that they had against Bournemouth. Some catastrophic defending, particularly the hospital back pass. And yeah, it was. I think that's for Nottingham Forest again. I think a lot of us sort of predicted that they would stay up, and it's proving that it's quite difficult at the moment. Obviously, they made so many different signings. I don't remember what the exact number was, in like 22, 23 or whatever it was. Yeah, so that amount of new players, it's going to take a while for them to bed in. You've basically got an entire new Premier League squad of players, so it's going to take a while for them to bed in. And Fulham, as you spoke about as well, I don't think many of us really could have predicted that Mitrovic would actually suddenly start to look incredibly potent. And I said most of us, Nathan.
Yeah,
you'd obviously saw him in the Championship and knew he could take the step up. Now he's matured a bit, and to be fair to Mitrovic, some of his goals have been absolutely ridiculous, and obviously his contributions for Fulham. So I think, but at the same time, this is a game that Forest have to win if they want to start gaining points and really sort of motoring up the table. This is the sort of game they're going to win. I'm tempted to go for a draw again, which is quite an easy cop out, but I'm going to stick myself behind one of the two teams. I'm going to say Fulham 2-1. With obviously Mitrovic being the star man again.
Evan?
For me, this is going to be high scoring. I'm going to go 3-2 Fulham.
And Reece?
Henderson tax 3-1 Fulham, Mitrovic hat trick, and you'll go one goal behind Haaland in the goal scoring list.
Okay. 3 games to take place on the Saturday, so the 12:30 kickoff, which is now going to be on BT between Wolverhampton Wanderers and Manchester City. Obviously, Wolves announced Diego Costa. He obviously probably is going to take a while to get up the fitness, but is he good with Diego Costa back in the Premier League? Obviously, I have very much a strong soft. I still can't believe Conte got rid of him by text message. That's fucking unbelievable. George, what do you think?
Yeah, he was probably your last good striker.
I think that's harsh on Giroud. Probably our last best starting striker.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fairer reflection. But yeah, I think Costa was one of those he was a sort of dream striker, wasn't he? The sort of striker that can almost take on a defence by himself, score some incredible individual goals, but just always be a threat. And I think that's what you guys have. It's obviously, you spoke about it previously. Well, that's what you tried to sort of get with Lukaku, and that miserably failed. But I think for me, it's almost like it's almost a totally different game if Costa actually gets some minutes, just because he's going to be completely up for it, throwing himself around absolutely everywhere. I saw that sort of announcement thing, and I felt quite sorry for the Wolves that they if they're going to have to be the Diego Costa. But I still think obviously Man City are in a good vein of form, and I can't really go against them. Particularly as well, I think with Wolves, they have picked up some good results against Man City over the years, but I think obviously Man City are slightly different with Haaland. I think Haaland gives them that sort of greater potency, and also with Wolves, I was very disappointed. I'm still sort of a bit bitter because they could have given Liverpool the Premier League with that bottle job they did on the final day of last season. The defence being so catastrophic, so. yeah, I think Man City will go score heavy again. So I think 4-1 Man City.
Nathan?
It's a difficult one for me, really, because Wolves tend to turn up in these games against Man City. I think it will be tight-ish, but I think Man City will be able to keep a clean sheet. I'm going to go 2-0 Man City.
Reese?
You would expect City to win this one. I think, judging by it, it's a no-brainer. But I'm thinking, like, I don't think Costa's going to score a lot of goals in this Wolves team, but he's going to make up points in different ways. Obviously, just who he is as a person, which is absolutely brilliant. Like how he shithouses a team. Like he can agitate a defender really well. That'll force him at mistakes. Like get set bookings, sending offs, and himself obviously because he's got that experience. I think he'll accumulate more points for Wolves just by being a nightmare than scoring goals. And I think it might actually start here. So I'm going to go opposite to everybody, naturally. I'm actually going for a 1-0 draw.
The 3 o'clock kickoff on Saturday is Bournemouth and Newcastle at St James's Park. George?
Get myself off mute. Is Bruno Guimaraes back now? And St Maximin, are they all back now? Because
I think St Maximin's back. I don't think Bruno Guimaraes is though.
Well, that settles my prediction then.
That's the thing, is that Newcastle, I mean, obviously watching them, I've watched them a few times this season, and the difference without those two in there, obviously is just so dramatic. They've got some really good players, Newcastle, but some really, really poor ones. And they're just in that sort of, that transitional phase between being, what was ultimately a sort of club that did get relegated, obviously only a few years ago, and were sort of always flirting with relegation, now to a team that will eventually become a superpower, obviously with the amount of money they're going to have invested in them. So they're in that sort of phase where they've got a few good players now, but obviously there's still a few players who are truly terrible. So sometimes it can be quite difficult when they've got people out. And that's why I sort of asked that initial question, but I still think Newcastle will win, but I would say, and again, it depends on if Guimaraes and St Maximin are fit, I think it'll be a big win. But if one or either of them are out, I think just a narrow win. So on the balance of those probabilities, I'll say 2-0 Newcastle.
Right, Nathan?
For me, I think obviously with what's been going on at Bournemouth recently, I think Newcastle will. They'll walk this game. I'm going to go 3-0 to the tune.
Reese?
I'm just going to... I think it would just be like the sense where they're just controlling the game, but they might not score a lot of goals, but they'll have enough to seal out. I'm just going to go 1-0 Newcastle.
Newcastle and the 2 Sunday fixtures. So obviously this game has now been moved to 12 o'clock. Both games are on Sky Sports. I don't think we've ever seen it. Well, we've seen it, but we don't think we see a 12 o'clock on a Sunday very often. Obviously,
just our league, you see it 12 o'clock games.
So it's Brentford and Arsenal. I think these 2 games on Sunday are really difficult to call, and they're 2 really enjoyable games. Definitely sit back, and then I've got the NFL to watch. I'm sorry on Sunday. Brentford and Arsenal. George, what do you think?
Well, yeah, Brentford are in an amazing form. Obviously, Tony as well, particularly. I think Tony's sort of even Mitrovic is almost in the shadow of, I suppose, if Haaland sort of grabbing all the main headlines. But of course, you've got some of these other forwards who are doing phenomenal work for their respective clubs as well, and Tony's one of those. But obviously the other point is that Arsenal are trying to hit back, and Arsenal was the only result I finally got right as a correct score prediction in the Europa. Which was nice, but I still think Arsenal. I've said this before, obviously, and I think so. It proved against ourselves, obviously, at last week, is that I still think they lack a goal threat. A lot of people say that that's slightly fictitious or exaggerated. I think in terms of the clinical nature, I think that's what Arsenal are sort of lacking, and of course Brentford have that in Tony. So I'm going to go for Brentford 2-1.
Nathan?
This is going to be tight for me. I'm probably just going to edge Arsenal just about. I'm going to go 2-1.
Reese?
I'm going to go Brentford 3, Invincibles no more 2.
And then the final Premier League fixture is Everton and West Ham at Goodison Park. So what do you think about this one, George?
Difficult.
There's no point looking at the stats on Everton. You know they're shit.
That's what
You just hear that.
I just read them like a book.
I think it's a difficult one. This one. I'm going to be a shock slightly here. I'm going to say Everton 1-0.
Nathan?
1-1.
Reese?
Well, I had to just double check their record at the minute. They are 18th in the league. One win, 4 draws. It's just shit in general. But obviously, Everton are currently ahead of them by 2 positions in the league. It's because we've not watched football in so long. I couldn't remember what the fucking league table was. I just wanted to check. I think this is going to be really close. I think Lampard is, even though he's a really shit manager, I think he's starting to finally find the right personnel to go into his starting 11. I think what he needs to do after that is find the players that can go into the squad in rotation that keeps the squad flowing. Like that's an issue we have as well, which luckily we don't have to talk about United today. It's still a reflection of that, like in terms of like Everton, where they need to find that. I think they've got some good players. I think Onana's been a fantastic signing for them. I don't know what it is about Frank Lampard with his agenda against Alan, but I think he should be playing him in midfield. Personally, I think they need his energy and his driving runs. They don't have that other additional type of player. I think Gana Gay's a fantastic signing for them, getting him back as well. Much vital experience in the defensive midfield role. I do think West Ham have got more to them. Like I think they have the better team. I think they've got the better manager, the better system. But Goodison Park, you're going to have fans there. It's always been a good environment for Everton when they really need it under a crunch time situation. I think the 12th man's going to be the deciding factor here, and I think it's going to favour Everton. So I'm actually going to go 2-1 Everton, but it's going to be really, really close. I think it'll be a late winner from Everton, but I think this is Everton where they'll start to finally clear up the table. But West Ham, I think they're going to try as much as they can, but their eyes are definitely on the Conference League. I think it's clear they want to enjoy Europe as much as they can, but for the time being, they need to focus on the league because their league results are terrible. I hope they don't do the stupidity and sack David Moyes, which obviously West Ham have got a tendency to do. I think that'd be a horrible decision, but I think they need to get those attacking players really to step up because he cannot just keep playing the same way and hoping for the best, whereas Everton are at least trying to find at least Lampard's trying to find a plan B. I don't see that from West Ham at the minute, and I think that's a tail reflection. That's why I think the 12th man's going to be the key. So yeah, 2-1 Everton.
Cardiff City away to Huddersfield. George?
I love this.
2-0 Huddersfield.
Nathan?
We've scored 1 goal in 5 games. Fans are really not happy.
Mm-hmm. Don't we know
God. Oh God, I'm gonna go 0-0.
Reese?
I'm gonna go 3-1 to the Yorkshire Terriers.
And Reese, summarise what Cardiff's Twitter is going to be like after that one.
It's like what's the kindest way to describe it? It's like, you know how there's always a book that says XYZ for dummies. Well, here's a kind one in a nutshell. So Bluebird Legend, please don't kill me, but this is pure respect. It's purely going to be Bluebirds for dummies. It's so fucking funny. Like Cardiff Twitter is funnier than Arsenal. It is generally funnier than Arsenal fans bitching. It is the funniest thing I've ever seen. And I'm looking forward to more mandoms and more meltdowns. Nathan will be passing on to us anyway, but it's pure comedy gold. Like, if you're having a shit day or you feel really unwell, just have a look at Cardiff's Twitter because it's pure comedy.
And if you think that's good, you should see it outside the ground after we lose about 2-3-0.
The final an honourable mention. It has to be obviously Man United lose to Real Sociedad in the Europa League at Old Trafford. No, it was obviously a team with atmosphere because obviously the Queen's announcement was made, I think, just literally 2 hours before that game. So I don't know if that had anything to play at all in this game. Obviously, it did play a part in the atmosphere because the atmosphere was dead, which was understandable. But we haven't talked about that scandalous VAR decision that actually gave Real Sociedad the penalty to win the game. So, George, I'll give you a wee platform for a quick talk about the game. So, George, start with you.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I think obviously Eric Ten Hag made some switches in terms of personnel. Obviously, resting a few players, keeping a few in there. It's clear to me that he does value Eriksen as probably our sort of most important player. He's the one that he doesn't, tend to rotate. But not only in terms of actually playing him or not, but also in terms of his position. Perfect opportunity with Fred and Casemiro there, who I'm reassured. Although I don't watch Brazil, I'm reassured. Apparently, they film an exhilarating partnership for Brazil as a pair. So quite interesting that he decided to neglect that and obviously put Eriksen, keep him in the sort of deeper role. And obviously Fred was a main problem in that game. A player who does offer a lot of tenacity and energy. Again, these are sort of things, and pressing, things that we always say about Fred. But in terms of creativity, which is a key aspect of a 10's role, often non-existent. Decision making was very poor. We really did have a sort of almost void in that creative number 10 role. So that was where a lot of our problems happened. Cristiano Ronaldo looked lethargic. Again, up front, slightly off the pace. Obviously, had an offside goal where he should have got back in line, obviously, in terms of his header. But not only that, a few chances. Admittedly, I think a lot of people I thought went slightly over the top with Ronaldo because on those sort of chances or opportunities, there were no real glaring ones. They were all sort of almost like half chances. There was nothing that was, particularly clear cut about the chances. But you're expecting, as we all do, obviously, if someone of Ronaldo's caliber, you're expecting him to score on at least one or two of those occasions. So, yeah, he was poor, but I think overall there were lots of poor performances. I think Eriksen, was our sort of player of that first half. When he sort of got further forward, he almost became the 10 and actually created a lot more than Fred did from that role, which was slightly embarrassing. Elanga, he's again a player I don't want to go too much in on because obviously he's a young player, but realistically we need to start moving him away from the squad entirely. I don't necessarily think he offers anything when you start moving in players like Garnacho, because when a player isn't doing well enough, you start moving it. Quite interestingly enough, for Elanga, this is just as a brief aside, his league record is 28 Premier League appearances, 3 goals, which is absolutely abysmal. Obviously those 3 goals, one of them was against Wolves 2 seasons ago on the final day of the season. One was against Brentford in the 3-1 win at the start of this year, and the other one was in the 4-2 against Leeds. So those you can remember his 3 goals within his 28 appearances, and that's just ultimately, for me, the most frustrating thing about Elanga is he's incredibly quick. He's arguably our quickest player, but the amount of times that he could have stretched Real Sociedad's defence when they had the high line and decided to come close rather than spinning in behind, that was really, really annoying for me because there was space, I thought, and Elanga's just quite a weak player at the moment. So Ten Hag's going to have to work with him quite closely because as it stands for me at the moment, I don't think he's ever going to be United quality. And obviously we made the substitutions. I thought Bruno did an okay job. I thought Martinez was absolutely exceptional in that second half. Lindelof and Maguire. One of the things that we've always talked about with Man United's problems is the fact we can't progress the ball, and that was always the case with Maguire and Lindelof. Both of them love to play the safe bullshit sideways pass, and that's what we saw against Sociedad. The amount of times that Sociedad could get back into shape because Maguire and Lindelof decided to constantly play the boring sideways pass, whereas Martinez was breaking the lines, passing forward as much as he could, and you could see the difference again as to what he offers in his sort of microcosm in terms of that match. Back to the penalty, absolutely ridiculous decision. The only thing I can think of is the fact that within the 5 or 6 different now permutations of what a handball is, the fact that his hand was slightly away from his body, which again, as I said, on one of the 6 conditions of what handball can be given is the fact that if you make your silhouette slightly bigger, that's when it can be given. But of course, for me, that could never be given, because the fact was the ball hit his leg and then had a massive deflection up and before it struck him on. Then I was absolutely, gobsmacked that was given, but at the same time, not really, because we know that VAR and refereeing decisions have been terrible in the past. But it was just not even just that fact, but obviously the referee was never invited even to have a look. It was just instantaneously given. So. Very poor decision. And ultimately, that was a 0-0 game all over. Really, that was the only opportunity that Sociedad really had. And again, we saw obviously with David De Gea, his failings again, terrible distribution. Got to move him at some point. The penny's got to drop. He's got to be dropped entirely out of the team. Whether that's for Debrav because he was terrible as well. But yeah, very disappointing for Man United. We missed Rashford as well. I think again, because Elanga offers nothing, you do miss a player of his quality. I also thought that my very final point as well, because I realised it's sort of getting late and people want to head off. My final point on it is that I thought Erik ten Hag's decision to bring Antony off was incorrect as well. It was almost his last interaction was Antony getting his direct opponent the yellow card when he obviously sided him down, and for me that would have been a perfect opportunity to keep Antony on and keep him running, and obviously try and get him set, get the other player sent off, or force him not to make the challenge to not get sent off, and that might have created an opportunity. So, and obviously when Sancho came on again, he sort of plays the more pragmatic or risk-averse football, whereas I think Antony was finally getting some joy out of his opponent, so I would have kept Antony on. And the other thing that Antony was doing was he was showing urgency, which a lot of our players didn't show. Again, like I said, speaking about De Gea, there was a moment in the last few minutes where he was just pissing about on the edge of his box, and the crowd was baying for him to bloody horse it or hoof it for once, and he was just absolutely terrible. So yeah, poor day at the office, but Ten Hag lives and learns, and I think a lot of people were sort of showing it as a conclusion of the fact that a lot of the players that he picked are players that he doesn't pick in the league, and they hadn't taken their opportunity. So yeah, very disappointing. But ultimately for me as well, we want to. It wouldn't be so bad if the Premier League competition wasn't so much. So many good teams heading for that top four, that maybe Europa League might be the only opportunity we get for Champions League, because the competition is just so tough in the Premier League. So,
Rachel, do you think about the Sociedad game?
More or less the same, but I think another thing as well was I agree. I thought Ten Hag obviously had at least to make these changes. I think some of them may have been a bit maybe too risky than he should have done. I think it's clear as day. Like, you cannot, obviously we've known for ages, but you cannot play Maguire and Lindelof together. I think you have to play one with Martinez or Varane. Like, you've got to find some sort of connection there. You cannot play both together because it will hinder the pace of our attacking threat. I also thought the very bizarre decision of putting Lindelof at right back. I mean, I know, I get it, he doesn't rate Wan-Bissaka, but if you're going to take Dalot off if he's injured, you just put a natural replacement on. Even if you don't rate the player, put him in. At least it's a like for like, and at least it will free up another position where you could have put a different player on for a tactical switch. He could have went for a more diverted opinion. He could have went free at the back. Personally, but Malacia was playing really well. I've seen a lot of comments towards him, which I find very bizarre. Like on Twitter and all that, like people are saying that he's not good enough. He's not bringing any risk. Martinez has brought more. Like, Martinez and Malacia have formed a really good partnership for us. That Malacia's got the ability to just go for it. It's clear in abundance. He's a much more consistent, reliable option than Luke Shaw is. Luke Shaw's afraid to go in for the runs, whereas Malacia is willing to go at the winger and he's willing to go at his opposition fullback. And I think that's something else. I agree with George as well about the midfield. I think I do agree that he picked the right midfield, but he definitely got that order wrong. I would have played Eriksen in the 10 role, and I would have played Fred in the box-to-box role and Casemiro holding the play, disrupting it, and then just getting the ball to Fred, and then obviously Fred can progress as much as he can, then he'll play to Eriksen. I also agree about the front three, although maybe I would have changed that around a bit. I think when Antony did come off, personally, I wouldn't have brought Sancho on. I would have put Rashford in there, and I would have put Garnacho as well. I think that would have been more smart. I don't think Sancho had the best of appearances as well. I don't think he was particularly great against Sociedad. Ronaldo, for all his work, his first touch was it was the worst I've ever seen from his first touch. Like his first touch let him down completely in attacking threat. Even there was times where it was getting fed to him by Eriksen, where he had chances to score, and obviously he did put the ball in the back of the net with that header, which was ruled out correctly for offside because he didn't put in enough effort, in my opinion, to track back a player like Ronaldo, a player like Messi. We've spoken about in our group chat. You don't question their effort because these guys deserve it. But in a time where we really need a goal, ideally you would have expected Ronaldo to track that extra 2-3 yards, whatever it was, to be in that position where he's still going to score anyway. But De Gea was. I don't think De Gea should have started. I would have started Dubravka. I thought it was a good opportunity to see if he's actually good enough to come in. It was unfair for him to not get the opportunity. I think we may have done slightly better commanding the ball. But other than that, I don't see realistically anything else. I'm not even going to get into the VAR decision because I've criticised referees for 2 years in this podcast, and if I do it again, I'll probably have an aneurysm. Like, I'm sick to back teeth of VAR. I'm sick to like who's running VAR. I'm sick to back teeth of officials because it's not even just English officials anymore. It's just brain dead morons who clearly don't know their job. And people that are saying, "Oh, it's because Martinez is too small." It doesn't matter what height you are. A handball's a handball, but in that case, it was not a handball. Like, it's deflected off him. What do you expect him to do? He's in mid fucking air. Do you expect him to do the Superman?
I know it's a for competition, but after the World Cup, Mike Riley will no longer be in charge of the referees. It'll be Howard Webb will be taking over from Mike Riley.
God. Wait, hold on. Howard Webb, that's all right. We'll win the league then. That's all right. But in terms of like...
Sorry, go ahead.
We'll win the league then if it's Howard Webb. I'm just very concerned for the long-term game when it comes to technology. If it's people that generally don't know the rules of football that are running it, because it's clear and evident it's the same mistakes being repeated and they're not learning from it. You see it in other leagues where I talk about all the time, at European leagues like Italy. You see it with the Dutch league. You see it with the Bundesliga. It's clear evidence that they know. First of all, the decision making is very quick. Second of all, they'll look, they see the problem, they deal with it. Our league, it takes 5 minutes just to make a decision. Then it takes another 2 minutes to go, actually, let's go back and review the footage one more time. And then they realise, oh, wait, it's this. I don't know why he didn't go to the screen in the first place. I think the game was bought to stop United from winning the game. I think it was clear abject. But then again, there's corruption in Italian football. What more can I say? Sociedad didn't really deserve anything. Like, they only had one proper attempt, and that was the penalty. What else did they do? Really nothing. Like, David Silva, for all his technical brilliance, he was quiet in that game. I didn't see anything. I think we're very lucky that Oyarzabal is injured, but he will obviously play against us in Spain. Like, he is the main danger man. Like, he is an absolute threat on the wing.
Yeah.
But it was never a win for Sociedad, in my opinion. It's not because it's biased, because it's Man United and I want us to win every single game, but we didn't deserve to lose that game. Sociedad didn't deserve to win. George was right, that was a 0-0 game. It was 0-0 all over. And shout out to Garnacho for 5 minutes. He was our best attacking player in the second half, which was absolutely funny.
And so that brings you into the World of Football podcast 10-9 for another episode. Thank you everyone for tuning in and enjoying the show. Obviously, a bit more limited on what we can talk about, but I think we've got 2 hours of really good content in there. We did go a bit longer than I actually thought it was going to go, so I do apologise for that. But still, we're getting a lot of European action and loads of European football coming up, and there's still some really decent Premier League fixtures to enjoy over the weekend. So, George, any final words from yourself?
Yeah, obviously, thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. As always, obviously, at the new location, obviously on Josh's channel. And yeah, very much enjoyed it as always. And yeah, looking forward to the next one.
Nathan?
Yeah, thanks for having me on as usual, guys. 2 Cardiff losses maybe incoming. Oh, God, it's going to be a long week. Bring on next Monday.
And Reese?
There's not a lot for me except look after yourselves and enjoy whatever you do, whether you decide to watch any football or just chill and do fuck all. Just enjoy yourselves and don't be a cunt.
Everyone, thank you very much for watching the World Football Podcast. Hit the like button, just share the stream. Follow everybody in the description below if you haven't already. And we will be live next Monday night, same time, same place, to talk about all the action that unfolds between now and then. So enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy all the action. And see you later.
I'm not holding back for anyone. I've been holding